Today we're going to be looking at the best companion per Doctor. In this case, best can mean either or best performed, best written, or best overall, and we're going to look at them divided by Doctor. So some companions may apply to multiple Doctors. Now, the first companion on this list is the first companion, Susan Foreman. Now, she was the first Doctor's granddaughter and the first person to travel in the TARDIS besides the Doctor that we know of. And she is a really interesting character. And that, yes, she was written as a frail and feeble girl, but at the same time she had telepathic powers. She was incredibly intelligent and cared a great deal about bettering the lives of the poor, of the oppressed. And in An Unearthly Child, the first story that we ever see of Doctor Who, she is the main character. She's the reason the plot starts. Her teachers are curious as to what's going on with her. Why is she so weird? How does she know these things? Why doesn't she know these other things? Is she possibly a time-traveling alien? Of course not. And then they go to her home, which is a junkyard. They meet her grandfather, who is Doctor Who. And the story goes from there. The teachers get kidnapped, and we are opened into a wonderful world of adventure. And unfortunately, through much of that adventure, her character arc takes a dip. She starts screaming all the time. She falls and hurts her ankle. She is a lot less interesting than what is promised in the first story. But then, in the Sensorites, she is revealed to have telepathic powers. She can communicate with the alien race they're encountering. She is dedicated to making their lives better, bringing peace, and ultimately she leaves the TARDIS to pursue love in a nearly Dalek-destroyed world after the Dalek invasion of Earth. She's a wonderful character who, in many ways, foreshadows what the Doctor will become, a hero, a strange alien figure who's out to make the world better. And we can see a lot of that in his youthful granddaughter. Now, as previously mentioned, I would suggest you look into An Unearthly Child, but specifically Part 1, as the character dip does take place pretty much immediately in Episode 2. And the Sensorites, where she is revealed to have telepathic powers, and she really takes the forefront of the story for one of only several occasions in the time that she is by the Doctor's side on screen. Now, she is the best companion for the first Doctor. However, moving on, we have the second Doctor, played by Patrick Troughton, and his best companion is Jamie. Now, Jamie is interesting in a couple of ways. First off, yes, Susan wasn't from modern-day Earth, but the majority of companions are. It's pretty much the template. And he was an ancient Scottish Highlander who was a warrior. He carried a big blade. He wore a kilt. He was an impassioned Scottish patriot. And that led to a really interesting dynamic in that when we were learning about advanced technology, it was to a greater extreme for him. He was more out of his depth than almost any other companion, and that allowed him to really shine because he could handle it all. He knew that if he just hit it and ran fast and did what the Doctor said, or didn't do what the Doctor said when the Doctor was being an idiot, he would survive. He was the Doctor's best friend for the time, and one of his best friends ever. Also, interestingly, another way that Jamie breaks the mold is that he was not a young woman. He was a young man, which also, it's a sort of brotherly / father and son dynamic the Doctor and Jamie have, which makes it all the more heartbreaking when they are eventually forcibly separated. You get the feeling that this is a family being torn apart. And honestly, I think he is a great case for why the new series could adopt that kind of mold for future companions who are from the past, which we haven't had, companions who are male, which we rarely have. We have Nardole, who is mostly a comic relief character, and we have Captain Jack, who only briefly traveled in the TARDIS, as well as Adam, who very briefly traveled in the TARDIS, so briefly that most people don't remember him. So we could really have characters who are deeply explored, who are different from our general experience of life, and that Jamie shows us that people are people, no matter where they're from, and we can learn to embrace and love them as people. Now, the Third Doctor technically didn't have many companions, but for the sake of this video, we'll say that anyone who was very close to the Doctor in a semi-subordinate, semi-equal role is a companion. Someone who would ask the Doctor questions, someone who is not in a position to boss the Doctor around in an official capacity, so not the Brigadier. So we have his first assistant, his lab assistant, Liz Shaw, is his best companion. Now this is for a few reasons. Firstly, she is pretty much the symbol of female empowerment in the 1970s, or feminism, the women's liberation movement. She is originally hired on as the scientific advisor of UNIT. And then the Doctor shows up, the man who is the inspiration for the creation of UNIT, and he takes her job pretty much. They work side by side, but he's clearly the dominant figure. And in a lot of stories, Liz Shaw could take a backseat. She could say, well, this is a brilliant alien, and I am a human woman from Earth. But no, she steps forward, she argues a heck of a lot, and she becomes not only a foible to the Doctor's superiority, but a close friend, and someone who allows him to save the day, and does in fact save the day herself on many occasions. She shows that by applying yourself, by using your mind, and not letting anything stand in your way, you can be the hero of the day, even if the show is called Doctor Who, not Liz Shaw. And, yeah, she does randomly leave for no reason when the show is off, and then it gets replaced by an idiot, but that's chill. I mean, I guess that's fine. Everybody loves Joe Grant, don't they? Anyway, now moving on to the Fourth Doctor, we have two characters who are number one, in that they are the same character, but they are two. Romana 1 and Romana 2. The Time Lady, the Ice Princess, the brilliant sort of pre-Hermione Granger that we get in Romana. She is a Time Lady from Gallifrey who is sent to help the Doctor collect the key to time and save the universe. She's also sent to make incredibly sarcastic comments and call him an idiot. She puts the Doctor in his place, even more so than Liz Shaw, because this character is fundamentally on the same footing. They are the same species. She is better educated. She is younger, but she's that more to her advantage in that she puts him down as a silly old man. It's a really great character dynamic. The first Romana, played by Mary Tamm, has been often described as a sort of ice queen. And this is really the core of her performance. She is incredibly cold to the Doctor, not because she doesn't care, but because she is someone who needs to distance herself from the world in order to achieve power, to put herself in a position of dominance. She is a woman in control of everything around her, whether or not it's a horrific slug monster or Tom Baker chewing the scenery. She is the person you are watching on screen. She is the person that keeps you watching. She just gives a wonderful performance. And then she didn't ultimately, Mary Tamm didn't ultimately feel that the scripts were going her way, that they wanted to give more dominance to Tom Baker in the part, and that she wasn't being written the way she wanted to. So she just leaves. Her Romana 1 just randomly decides to regenerate. She's not dying. She just picks out a new face, like you were picking a new dress or a suit or a hat, which is a really interesting way to go about it and something we haven't seen before or since. But then Lela Ward, who actually did end up marrying Tom Baker at one point, comes in, and she brings a sort of fresh and new aspect to the character, in that she's incredibly friendly and cheerful, and really she's all about the adventure. And I think that's an interesting way to go about it, in that you see the development of Romana's character. Romana 1 had continually become more accepting of the Doctor and his eccentricity, and more willing to go along with the adventure. And now with Romana 2, we have a character whose fundamental desire in life is to go and have adventures, to have fun, to save the universe, which is a really... I think that's a great use for regeneration, that you can take a character arc and you can make it literal, where someone literally turns into a new person with a new core motivation at the end of their character development. Now, ultimately, I do prefer Romana 1, but I understand why Romana 2 is generally preferred, in that Romana 1 is less approachable. But honestly, that's just being a lazy viewer. Romana 1 is one of the best characters of all time, and Romana 2 continues that legacy beautifully, and ultimately that's why both characters, or the singular character, are the best Tom Baker companion. Now, moving forward, we have probably... Now, I don't want to be rude, but this is the weakest character on the list of the best, the worst of the best. This is Tikhon Javanka. Now, she is a strong and interesting character, but she starts out kind of really annoying. She's constantly... she enters the TARDIS, and she doesn't really want to go anywhere, but her aunt gets killed randomly. They never really mention that again. Imagine your aunt dies, and you don't mention that a week later ever again in your entire life. That's just being rude. Now, she enters the TARDIS. She starts traveling with the Doctor, not because she really wants to, but because the Doctor's terrible at flying his TARDIS. And she just really wants to get back to work. She works as a hostess on an airline, and she wants to get back to the airport, which is a really boring goal. Like, seriously, you can go all time and space. You just want to go to an airport in Australia. Yeah, she's Australian, which either honestly kind of adds to her character. Australian accents are cool, but she wants to go back to the airport, and she basically just whines and moans about that for stories and stories and stories. But eventually, she does grow a lot as a character. She starts to become someone who's incredibly loyal to the Doctor, someone who has a deep well of emotional complexity, who cares a great deal about her friends, and is willing to stand up for what is right. And ultimately, I feel that it's the performance that is given here. Really, Tegan feels like one of the most human characters in the entire history of Classic Who. She's someone who has insecurities, who has dreams, who has hopes, who has real weaknesses and pride, and all of these factors that are both good and bad that make us human. We feel this in Tegan. We feel that we are watching a real person engage with the Doctor. And yes, she's not always gung-ho to go on adventures, but she is someone that you can relate to and you can put yourself in the shoes of, which is ultimately one of the major roles of the companion. Now, moving forward, we have one of the best companions of all time. I mean, just top tier. Frobisher the Talking Penguin. This is the 6th Doctor's companion, and yes, you might say, well, he wasn't on the TV show, but this is Colin Baker's favorite companion, the 6th Doctor himself. So yes, he is the best companion. He was in the comics and in the audio plays featuring Colin Baker. Now, Frobisher is incredibly cool. He was a pulp fiction style detective, like a gumshoe. He's part of an alien race that can shapeshift, but on his planet, everyone looks like talking zoo animals, because that's just their preferred forms. And he constantly makes clever quips, and he's just a great character. Now, actually, shoot, to go back, Jamie, you watch the War Games, Liz Shaw, you watch Spirit from Space, and Romana, the Pirate Planet, and City of Death. I'm sorry, I'm trying to do this all in one take. Now, for also Tegan, Arc of Infinity. But for Frobisher, I listened to him in The Holy Terror recently. In this, he becomes the king god of a weird planet that might all exist inside a castle. So check that out. I can't give any more spoilers away, but he is incredibly funny, but also isn't limited by humor, and that he can really serve a lot of roles in the story. And it would be really great if he returned for the TV show at some point to further canonize the Big Finish audio, which is canon, and if you don't believe it, you can freaking fight me. And the comics, which are also canon. Seriously. Don't push it. And, Moving forward, we have the Seventh Doctor, and his best companion by a long shot, seriously, Mel sucks, is Ace. Now, Ace's real name is Dorothy. She goes by Ace because she hates her mom and she wants to be a rebellious teenager. She is the anarcho-communist, lesbian punk rocker of the companions. She initially shows up in Dragonfire, where she has been taken away by a time storm, which might be plot relevant later on. And then as she travels with the Doctor, she constantly uses homemade explosives to blow things up, which probably wouldn't work as well on TV today, given, well, historical events which have happened recently. But in the time, she works incredibly well. She is the spirit of rebellion, and just one of the greatest characters created in fiction altogether. She is just so punk rock. Now, I've already mentioned Dragonfire. I would also suggest you check out The Curse of Fenric, which has one of the greatest villains of all time, Fenric, and Ghostlight, which you won't understand, but pretend like you do so you seem smart. I don't understand either. I'm not smart. And Survival, which is, ironically, the last story of classic Doctor Who, so they didn't really survive. Now, moving forward, I am not an expert on the Eighth Doctor audio plays. I have listened to more than most Doctor Who fans, and that I've listened to some, but I think Grace Holloway from the movie is okay. I think she works fine. I don't mind the kiss between her and the Doctor. Cheng Li from the movie isn't really the Doctor's companion, and if he was, he would still be ranked lower than Grace, because he wasn't very good. And really, I'm on the Charlie era and of the Big Finish audios, and right now, out of those three, I like her the best. I know there are other companions, and I'm going to probably make a official ranking of the Eighth Doctor later, but in this case, Charlie Pollard, just a really great character who has a lot of different aspects that you don't typically see in the show. And a really timey-wimey plot. I don't want to give spoilers away for. So far, if you really want an interesting story and you don't want a lot of standalone stuff, you can, from what I've listened to, you can watch or listen to Storm Warning. It's on Spotify. It's a great opener for the Eighth Doctor's adventures, as well as Charlie Pollard, and then Chimes of Midnight, which is a great suicidal Christmas story. So, if you like that, if you like suicide, you like Christmas, well, if you like suicide, I don't know what's wrong with you, but if you like weird ghost stories, listen to that. Now, moving forward, we have the War Doctor. Now, you might be saying to yourself, wait, the War Doctor doesn't have companions. The War Doctor was just in the Day of the Doctor, and, well, yeah. But in Engines of War, which is a novel, I know, fancy schmancy, I can read. He has the Dalek Hunter Cinder as his companion. She's sort of a street tough Dalek hunter who has had a really tough life and seen so much pain and suffering. And really, she's a fitting character for the War Doctor in that he is an edgy AF version of the Doctor, and she's an edgy AF version of the traditional companion format. So, honestly, I love both of these characters, and you should really check out Engines of War. My copy has a couple of typos, but I kind of got that right after the 50th, and I hope they fixed them. Regardless, it's a great story, and I do believe she features in a novel with the 12th Doctor as well as a comic. So just a really interesting character you might want to check out to give some context to other spin-off media and the War Doctor himself. Now, for the 9th Doctor, a lot of people probably think they know what I'm going to say. And just to give some honorable mention, yes, Rose Tyler probably should be on this list. She was a core element in Series 1 through, well, 4, Series 1 through 4, so both for the 9th and 10th Doctors. But I'm really only using this list to rank the best companion, and you really can't beat Captain Jack. Rose was a good character, but Captain Jack was an omnisexual time-traveling hero who became immortal. So, yeah, I'm going to put Captain Jack. Now, the thing is, a lot of his best stories happen in the spin-off Torchwood, which I'm only recommending Doctor Who because this is mostly a Doctor Who based channel. I will probably talk about Torchwood at some point in the future, but I'm talking about Doctor Who stories here. And a lot of the stuff that is cool you have later on in the new series. But for the Ninth Doctor, his best story for the best story for Captain Jack really is The Empty Child and The Doctor Dances. It's a great introduction to the character. He's in a place that is different from most of what you'll see him in that he is more of a semi-villainous sort of anti-hero. And you get to see, if you watch more, you get to see a lot of character development as he becomes more of a clear-cut hero and someone closer to the Doctor. He gets to grow a lot from that point. So I really suggest you watch The Empty Child / The Doctor Dances, and then just keep watching those stories because he really does grow a lot. Now, for the 10th Doctor, Donna Noble, she is just the best. She's his snappy best friend who doesn't want any of his BS, and she's fantastic. And yes, she's got a lot of great stories, but I would suggest Turn Left because it's really her standing on her own, and it's just a great story that shows what happens if the Doctor doesn't show up to save the day. Now, for 11, Amy Pond. The 11th Hour is a great introduction. A Good Man Goes to War shows her at her weakest, her most emotionally raw, and the God Complex it's not her actual exit, but it's one of the strongest companion exits I've ever seen. Amy Pond is, in a sense, the fan of the show, in that she was exposed to Doctor Who or the Doctor as a child. It leaves her life, and then it comes back, and she's got this sort of, she idolizes the character in a way that a lot of people idolize the show. So it's a sort of cool meta-narrative, which I appreciate. I know sometimes meta-narratives and in-jokes like that can not work, but I think in her case, her character arc really works as an exploration of what the show is and what the show-audience relationship. Now, for the 12th Doctor, I know a lot of people hate Clara, and which is why, yeah, she's not on this list, don't worry. Clara is not my favorite 12th Doctor companion. But no, but I almost put Bill here, but it's Nardole. Nardole, I know I talked about him just being a humorous comic relief device, but he is so much more than that. He of course, he appears in his first story, The Husbands of Riversong. He didn't really interest me. Even in his second story, The Return of Dr. Mysterio, he didn't really interest me. I liked his bit at the end where it felt like he really did care about the Doctor and was invested in his emotional well-being. But it wasn't really till Series 10 where I realized that this character has a lot of... It's a weird paternal relationship with the Doctor, and that Nardole is sort of like his dad-aunt, like his overprotective aunt-mom-dad, who just wants to keep him safe and keep the universe protected from him. And he's just a really great character who is not full of love and meme material. And yeah, he's also not a simple character. He's apparently got invisible hair and glass nipples, and he was once a con man, so similar to Captain Jack, but this detail falls into the background. It's only ever occasionally referenced that he was a criminal in the past, so it leaves a lot of room to interpret his character how you want. And then at the end, spoilers, he does fall in love. He gives a great little emotional speech about, or some dialogue about how he truly cares about Bill Potts and the Doctor, and he'll never get over their apparent deaths. He's a truly caring, loving person, and I think that's an important part of any companion, that you feel for them and you feel with them, that there's more than what is shown on screen. All of these characters help us in our journeys with the Doctor, and they are all unique and wonderful in their own ways. And yes, many of the ones I didn't mention are fantastic. But ultimately, we're each experiencing Doctor Who in our own way, and these are just my opinions, just as these characters would each have different perspectives on the universe the Doctor shows them. So,
If you disagree with my list, tell me why. Tell me what order you think these should be in, and what characters you think should be on here, what characters you think shouldn't be. You know what to do. Like, subscribe. Bye.